Been a couple weeks since I did a quick knife overview, so got a new one today. If you remember a few weeks ago, I actually had it was a Hogue OTF, and then they came out with an exploit, which is really just a slightly updated version of that, but largely the same, just some of the texturing on the grip and some things like that had changed. And then they came out with this new Compound, which is an aluminum chassis and a G10 scale. So I ended up actually selling my OTF and went and got this. So this is kind of the overview of the new one. The reason I got this was because it was everything I liked about the old one, although in this case I did get a Tanto blade. I really like the shape of that one instead of the clip point. But also I like the way that it was contoured here. I like the fact that it's super light, this knife, which is like a three and a half or something like it inch blade. It's actually a fairly good sized knife. But it's 3 5/8 ounces on the scale. So this one also has pocket clip reversible for both sides. So if you're righty or lefty, but always tip down, obviously, due to the type of knife that it is. Double action out the front. It's very light. The G10 scales don't have to worry about scratching. If it's in your pocket and your keys scratch like when you have an aluminum handled knife with anodizing, they'll wear pretty well. But over time, they're going to get scuffed up, and if you don't mind that patina look, that's fine. But here, this is just a lot more robust. It'll wear a lot longer, I think, than the aluminum will, and it won't start to look like crap over time. G10 is very forgiving. It's incredibly strong, nearly indestructible, but it's also over an aluminum chassis, so the internals are still, what you like about the Hogue strong metal chassis. But then it's got these layers on top. Also, G10 tends to be grippy without being abrasive. And when you get it wet, when you're looking at metal, usually there's like a certain, the term is lubricity or something like that. When it gets wet, it can affect your grip, unless there's some kind of machining and knurling that's ground into it, stippling, things like that, which then tends to chew the hell out of your pocket or your hand when it's dry. So this is like a really good compromise. It's grippy enough, but it's still fairly smooth, but it's definitely got some texture. But also, they've added in the machining here and here, because it has to go around the aluminum chassis. So the aluminum chassis would have ended, along the lines of the old one. This is a kind of a cover over it. So it gives you something nice to grip on, no sacrifice in strength. But now you've also got a little bit of a finger stop. You've got a little bit of a knurling or a protrusion right there to where it really kind of locks your hand in. So being a Tanto blade made for stabby, pointy things, very strong tip. Really like this, very sharp. Looks like it won't be too hard to sharpen. I mean, you're going to sharpen that edge, and then you're going to turn it, and you're going to sharpen that edge that way. So I don't think it'd be that hard to sharpen. CPM 154 steel, I believe. No, this is actually, all right, so this is another increase. All right, I didn't realize that when I bought it. I thought it was 154 steel. This is actually S30V, so that's actually a little bit of a step up. So that's a pretty good steel. Not M390, it's not LMAX, but for a pocket knife, do you really need that? That's a good blade steel. So nice, smooth deployment. Very stiff spring. I think that'll loosen up a little bit over time, but it's good because this nub in here doesn't really beat up your thumb. It has a little bit of jimping, but it's because of the angle. If you're looking at this, you can see the angle it's at. Your finger kind of really hits it right there. You don't rely on really aggressive texturing to grip your thumb. So it's actually very mild on your thumb. Nice smooth action. Is a little bit stiffer spring. I think that'll loosen up a little bit. Very cool so far. Very light, very nice action. Just to compare it size-wise to some of the other ones I've reviewed, we've got our Guardian Tactical Recon, which is by far the smoothest, buttery smooth knife I have, even over the Microtech. The way that they did the stainless steel plate there, which is highly polished and very smooth. You've got ceramic ball bearings under this. It's a light spring pressure. That is a smooth ass knife, man. That's the smoothest action I've got. The Microtech is good, but that knurling, while it looks good, it chews up your fingers. Not as bad as some of the ones, not as bad as the Cobra Tech, but I would say of the knives I currently own, that is the most abrasive on your thumb. So if you sit there doing this a lot, it's already kind of digging in and getting a little uncomfortable. So looks pretty, not actually as comfortable. I would love to have that smoothed out, and I like the pattern, I like the design if you get in there and look at it real close, but yeah, it's not as nice. The other thing I noticed with this Microtech, there's some things I like about it better. I think it looks good, but it's slippery. It's very slim in your, it's definitely a smaller handle. It's a little more elegant looking. I like the fact that there's a little bit of belly to that blade, but I also look at that tip and I'm like, it's fairly robust, but I could see if you stab something, how thin that is, you could snap that off. I feel like that is a much stronger tip. If you were to have to pierce, through something, I feel like that would hold, this one here with the Hogue would hold up a little bit better. But I do like that one has a little bit of belly on that for slicing. Not that you're not going to be able to cut or slice with that, but this would definitely cut rope or food prep or things like that a little better. That blade's a little taller. I like the way it looks aesthetically. Maybe it's a little stronger because there's a little more steel in there. But my biggest thing actually with the Microtech is not just that little bit of overly grippy, is see that movement? In my other Microtech, I had a UTX 85 has that. Now my Vespa, which I don't have here, I'm not going to go get now, but you've seen it in other ones. The Vespa is the Chinese, I don't want to say knockoff because they're not marketing as a Microtech, but it's clearly they've produced a Microtech. They just put their name on it. And it's a Combat Trodoon version. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have it on the Guardian Recon. Nothing here. Those things don't move. There's no wiggle. This thing, there's actually a rattle. When you move it around, you can hear it. There is so much play in that. And you'd say, well, maybe you want it loose because you don't want it to be tight, you don't want it to bind. But that deployment and that button, it's not a better deployment. I just feel like if it's already that loose, then over time, as the metal on metal wears it down, that's just going to get looser and looser. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that. If there was something Microtech would want to improve, is you see how much that's moving? I don't know, what's that, like a 32nd of an inch or something? That's almost a millimeter of play. And that's a brand new knife that I've carried twice. I mean, I've had it for 3 weeks. And it was like that out of the box. I would think that over time, if you're opening and deploying the knife a lot, which, it's a cool knife, you kind of sit there and do that, or just using it a lot, I wonder if that metal's going to wear and wear until eventually there's enough of a gap where that button might pop out. It might pop out of that track. I get no impression. There's a tiny bit of play because it can't be tight. It can't be trying to bind when you're working it. But at the same time, out of the box for a Microtech, which is supposed to be the benchmark, man, look how much that is wiggling around. Look at that gap changing in there. I don't like that. I'll be honest. The Hogue doesn't have it. Very comfortable, and this thing, you can do that all day. Doesn't eat up your thumb. It's very wide, smooth jimping, so you get a good grip on it, but it doesn't bite at all. I feel like if I did that, it would be wearing my thumb raw and chewing into it. So, well, Microtech is the benchmark. I'm not going to say the steel's not great, the machining's not great, I'm hard pressed to say that the Microtech is worth any price premium over these. And actually, maybe it was a bad example because this one was 20. Actually, these are almost exactly the same. This one was actually a few bucks more. This was 300 from Blade Offs, 305, something like that. That's a great knife. It's actually the lightest. Yeah, it's on par with this, which was the lightest. Well, maybe they're all close. I guess I probably should add a scale. I'm probably sitting here contradicting myself, but they're all pretty damn close. I think when it comes to using one, if you're just slicing things, little things, I think it's very small in your hand. There's nothing really to keep it from sliding up. That little bit of jimping there, it's not much. Like if you ever had to jab something that was fairly thick or was resisting the jabbing, I feel like that could slide a little bit, and that might catch a little bit. But same thing with this one. I think it's taller this way. And those little things there, they don't really do much to kind of lock your hand in there. But it's a little taller this way, so it's easier to grab. I think it's easier to get a grip on that, where this is really tiny. If you got big hands, you got to really kind of really squeeze your fingers in there to get a good grip on it. This one, if I was going to consider one to be a heavier use knife, It being wider this way, it being a little wider this way, may make it a little less pocket friendly if you're really conscious about every little millimeter in your pocket. I'm not. And the fact that you've got that and that, I mean, it really does lock your hands in there, where if you were to use this, pry on something, or had to thrust it into something, I don't feel like my hand's going to slide up and off that. You know, you've got that definite contour there. Here, kind of grabs the back of your hand a little bit, and you've certainly got your fingers locked in this way or that way, you know, depending on what it is you're doing. I'm typically not stabbing people. I'm just opening boxes and crap. But, you know, it's there. It's a tool if you had to use it for something that you didn't plan on. You know, it's good to have one that ergonomically fits. While some might look better, I would say obviously the Microtech's a better looking knife. No doubt about it. While I like the pattern on this, you know, this is just beautiful. It's elegant. That's a really, really sweet blade. I like the groove. I like the stone wash finish. Don't have to worry about it. If I did get a little scratch on it, blend right in, won't even see it. I like the glass breaker on this. This one's awesome just for the size and just how you can't see it on video. You have to go play with one of these. If you find a knife retailer that has them, go play with this against the Microtech. You will probably not buy the Microtech unless you just want Microtech. That takes half the effort to deploy, and it's just smooth. There's no grinding. There's no metal feel of any kind of resistance. It's just smooth. But I like this a lot. For the light, the G10 handles. Would have preferred some belly on the blade, but if you want a clip point, you know, I just got something different because I've got both styles, and this one looked like it was a really strong point, and that's also the one they had in stock, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's cool. I think you definitely should check these out. The new Hogue, everything you liked about the OTF and the Exploit, they've just taken it up to the next level with this compound. So anyway, check it out.